Welcome to our evening LTI session at the Kirby Leadership Conference. It is my great honor to welcome our distinguished guests. I first attended an LTI at the New York City Convention in 1981. And at that convention, Eileen Stevens spoke to the group. Her son, Chuck, had been killed at Alfred State University. I was pledged into a group that had no hazing. I was never hazed. I did not understand it. And I was shocked. I was appalled to hear the story of Chuck. To think that all these years later, I would be in this role and having to introduce two parents who have faced similar tragedy. Gentlemen, we must end this now. Please give your full attention to our special guests, Jim and Evelyn Piazza.
Thanks.
We're going to talk a little bit about our son Tim tonight and some of the things that we've learned over the past almost 2 years now, coming up on the 2-year anniversary. I assume most of you have seen Tim's picture or whatever in the news. Hopefully it leaves an imprint on you as you guys are leaders, and hopefully you'll walk away from tonight's session with some new ideas as to how to be leaders and how to take it back to your chapters and to go forward and to really teach others to do the right thing in your university, in whatever university you're in your chapters and whatnot. So let's go.
Good luck at your first semester of college.
We hope that you have a great first year at school.
Have a good time and learn a lot about yourself.
Make new friends and have fun.
Make us proud and study hard.
Make good decisions and be safe.
Love,
Mom and Dad.
This is an ABC News special report.
Tonight, a major new development in the alleged hazing death of Penn State student Timothy Piazza.
We have new evidence.
Surveillance video that authorities say was once destroyed, now recovered by the FBI.
This is the video that they clearly did not want seen.
Guess what, guys? Now we know.
Prosecutors say the footage from the basement of the Beta Theta Pi house shows fraternity brothers giving the 19-year-old pledge at least 18 drinks of beer, wine, and vodka, all in just an hour and
10 young men under arrest in the suspected hazing death of a college student in Louisiana. The LSU freshman died after attending a fraternity pledge event called Bible Study. Here's ABC's Steve Osunsami.
One by one today, the frat brothers accused in the September hazing death of this LSU freshman were led away in handcuffs. Their lawyers were upset it had to be so public.
They're going to parade these kids up this walkway and into that facility into Paris prison. That's not necessary.
9 of the 10 young men from Phi Delta Theta are charged tonight with misdemeanor hazing. But 19-year-old Matthew Naukin, who witnesses say was the most aggressive that night, is also accused of negligent homicide, a felony.
The latest fallout now from the fraternity death. A grand jury has found enough evidence to support criminal charges in the death of Florida State University pledge Andrew Coffey, who died last month after an alcohol-soaked frat party. It is one of 4 frat-related deaths this year. Eva Pilgrim here with the story. Good morning, Eva.
Good morning, George. We now know Andrew Coffey died from a lethal amount of alcohol that he allegedly drank at a frat party. In the search for answers, a grand jury interviewing witnesses this morning, that grand jury encouraging authorities to pursue criminal charges, saying that many of the brothers seemed rehearsed and were more concerned about getting in trouble than they were about trying to save Coffey's life.
20-year-old Andrew Coffey, a Pi Kappa Phi pledge at Florida State University, was found dead inside this house after an off-campus frat party this past November. His blood alcohol, nearly 7 times the legal limit to drive. Court documents now revealing the only people at the party, 2 strippers, the Pi Cap pledges, and their new big brothers. According to those at the party, Coffee passed out on a couch after drinking large amounts of liquor straight from the bottle. They claim as they played pool, Coffee fell asleep, snoring loudly. But the next morning when a pledge went to wake Coffee, he didn't have a pulse. Phone records show the pledge called and texted 5 frat members prior to calling 911.
Unfortunately, when medical emergency personnel got here along with TPD, they determined the person.
This morning, officials are investigating the death of a Texas State University student, saying alcohol may have played a role.
Some initial interviews of the persons on scene indicated they had been drinking that evening or the evening prior.
20-year-old Matthew Ellis, a Phi Kappa Psi pledge, was found dead Monday morning at an off-campus apartment after attending a fraternity event. Officials say if he was hazed, arrests could be made.
Charges could range from furnishing alcohol to a minor, on the high end of possibly manslaughter.
The university shutting down all Greek life at the school. The Texas State president releasing a statement saying it is imperative that our entire university community develop a culture that places the highest priority on the safety of its students, faculty, and staff.
Tim, let me tell you a little bit about our son, Tim. He was an amazing person with an incredible sense of humor. He liked being the protector of his friends, and he was shy until he got to know you. And then he was larger than life. He was a great son, brother, friend, and boyfriend. He was a pretty good athlete who thought nothing of using a football move on the basketball court. He was a good student who was good at math and science, so he decided to major in mechanical engineering and planned on designing prosthetics to help children and soldiers. And he just wanted to help people. He was really looking forward to being a part of the dance marathon at Penn State.
So before I talk about this picture, I was reminded when I was driving up here that I think the last time I was on this campus was when we were here for football camp for Tim, if I'm not mistaken. He went to camp at the Lafayette campus 2 years in a row during high school football. So driving here just reminded me of those good times. But anyway, this picture is from the Rose Bowl, which was January 2nd, 2017, after Penn State beat Wisconsin in 2016, and it was clear they were going to the Rose Bowl. Tim texted us, and he never really asked for anything, and said, I'd really love to go to the Rose Bowl. So, you know, I thought about it, and I was like, all right, well, we can go. And he had 2 stipulations, though. One, he had to be with his girlfriend on December 31st for New Year's Eve, because he didn't want to leave her alone. The second was that he had an internship that he was working on. He was an engineering major, and he wanted to be back by Wednesday so he can go back to his internship, and the Rose Bowl was on a Monday. So we basically left on Sunday, went to the Rose Bowl on Monday, and essentially came home on Tuesday. And spent a fortune over 3 days, which drove me crazy, but looking back on it now, it's the best decision I ever made. This is our last family photo. 30 days later, Tim was dying in a basement with no one really willing to help him. So.
And these are pictures of Tim with his girlfriend. He was considered part of their family. They were planning on him coming with them on vacation during the summer. Tim hated New York City, but when Caitlin's younger sister asked him to come to the American Girl Doll Museum in New York City, he went. He did whatever she wanted. He was her Tim. Caitlin's dad spoke at Tim's wake, where he said he couldn't have designed a better boyfriend for his daughter. He completely trusted Tim and felt safe knowing his daughter was in his care, which was huge for a cop and the dad of a girl. And these are pictures of Tim with his friends and his brother. He was always trying to make them laugh, whether it was his version of a pterodactyl call, an accent, a sound, or an off-key song, like when he tried to sing opera, or some inane phrase from, say, a commercial that he'd repeat over and over again until he got a laugh. And my favorite picture is the one to the right. That, to me, is pure contentment. They truly were perfect for each other. So now, instead of talking about how Tim was hazed, I want you to put yourself in our shoes. Who here has a brother or sister close in age to you? Close enough to be in college at the same time? If not, consider your best friend and consider that you are both going to the same college. Now, close your eyes and imagine that your brother is going to pledge a fraternity and it started last night. You get a call from your brother's roommate saying he didn't come home last night, and that's not like him. He always comes home. You decide something is wrong and call the hospital to see if he's there. They say, yes, there's been an accident, come right away. You rush to the hospital and see your brother on life support, neck brace, bruises and blood on his body and head, eyes half open. The doctor tells you it's bad, that he has a subdural hematoma, which is bleeding in his brain. His spleen is ruptured, he has a punctured lung, and he needs a blood transfusion because, as it turns out, 80% of his body's blood is in his abdomen. You have to call your mom to tell her that the doctor's going to call, but that your parents need to come now. You tell her what little information you know, that it was the first night of pledging and that he fell down the stairs. They need to medevac him to a trauma hospital 1.5 hours away for neurosurgery immediately. You talk to him even though he's unconscious. You tell him to hang in there, that you are proud of him, and that you love him. A tear rolls down his cheek, and you think he heard you. And then they take him away. Now, picture your mom and dad getting that phone call, as well as the call from the ER doctor. The doctor says he's a very sick boy, but they don't understand what he's hinting at, that their son is dying. It doesn't click. Both mom and dad have to drive 45 excruciating minutes from work to get home, to pack bags, and then drive over 2 hours to get to the hospital where he will be having surgery. Your dad says, this better not have anything to do with that fraternity. And your mom says, it was the first night of pledging. They call the police to find out what happened. There's not a lot of information, but they say he fell down the steps after drinking once, maybe twice. Your mom calls student affairs to say that he won't be in class because he's having emergency neurosurgery and abdominal surgery. She gets a call from the advisor of the fraternity, who has really nothing to say, except that the national fraternity will be flying in the next morning to meet them at the hospital. They get to the hospital and feel sick when they see the helicopter still outside. They rush in and have to wait in the surgical waiting room. Finally, someone comes to take them to the surgical ICU to meet with the surgeons. It turns out that this man is a chaplain, but it doesn't click why a chaplain was sent to get them. In a small room, a surgeon and a nurse tell them that their son's brain injury is non-recoverable. They feel the world stop. Another surgeon comes in and says that once the skull was removed to release the pressure on the brain kept swelling outside of the skull, and that this is considered brain death. They try to comprehend what's happening. He's brain dead? How can this be? He's still on life support. Is there any hope for recovery? No. They have tests to prove brain death, but because of his other injuries, they can't be done, and you have to take the doctor's word for it. You get a ride with your roommate to the hospital and find out how bad it is from your parents. You try to be the strong one. His girlfriend comes with her dad. They have to tell her that the boy she loves is brain dead. You all cry together. Then you finally get to see him. The only skin showing is his shoulders. His head is covered with a white gauze stocking cap to cover the bandages from having his skull removed to release the pressure on his brain from the bleeding. He's got bruises and swelling on his face. There are machines and IVs everywhere, monitoring his oxygen level and body temperature. They need to put chest tubes in his lungs because his oxygen level is dropping. They think he aspirated on vomit. The doctors and nurses tell you they are doing everything they can, but that it's just a matter of time. He's going to go into cardiac arrest. The organ donor person is talking to you about donating his kidneys, the only organs not damaged. Now you all have to decide whether to resuscitate him when he goes into cardiac arrest, potentially breaking ribs in his already battered body, only to know that he will go into cardiac arrest again. Or do you let him go into cardiac arrest and die so they can take him into an operating room to harvest his organs? Or do you turn the machines off now in an operating room and let him go so they can harvest his organs immediately? You, your parents, his girlfriend, and her dad decide to turn the machines off, but he codes before he can tell the doctors, and they resuscitate him as you watch from the hallway. A nurse pulls your mom forward and tells her to kiss her baby goodbye. He goes into cardiac arrest again, and you all let him go. You and the 10 medical personnel in the room who look at you with sad eyes. And there it is. He's dead. It's 1:23 a.m. A day and a half ago, he was alive and happy. How did this happen? How did we get here? What happened at that fraternity house? This doesn't make sense. He was a good kid. He wasn't a risk taker. He wasn't a drinker. He was a good student. He had a longtime girlfriend who he was planning a future with. He had great friends and roommates. He had plans for his future at school and for his career. What happened? He was an amazing person who was hazed and then ignored, tortured, and left to die because the fraternity did not want to get in trouble. Think about this being your loss. Think about this being your pain. Think about having a funeral, having your brother cremated, and having to watch your mom put his urn in a niche at the mausoleum. Think about you losing your best friend, your only sibling. Why? Because he was hazed. Everyone's lives are forever altered, and there will always be this hole in your heart because he was hazed, got seriously hurt, and no one was willing to do the right thing and call for help because they didn't want to get in trouble.
So this was all very preventable, obviously. I mean, the hazing situation that happened shouldn't have happened, but then it, the fact is it did happen. And then he got hurt, and no one was willing to do the right thing. No one was willing to help him. When we were in the hospital, I looked at the doctor and I said, if somebody would have called for help a lot earlier, would we have a different outcome here? And he said, yeah. They could have helped him, but instead, a room full of people wouldn't allow 911 to be called, and there were at least 2 people that said, this guy needs help. We got to help him.
Because of hazing, life is on an alternate course. This is not the way it was supposed to be. You are now an only child. Your children won't have cousins on your side of the family. All the things that you were supposed to share together, holidays, vacations, tailgates at your alma mater, won't be happening. You lost your best friend, your workout buddy, your confidant. His girlfriend lost her future husband, their future kids, and the future life that they were planning and looking forward to down the line. Friends lost the person who'd be the best man at their wedding, one of the greatest people they ever knew, the guy who could make them laugh no matter what. Parents lost half of their world and their greatest joy in life. Half of their heart is gone, and they feel that pain in their chest and in their soul every day. You wake up and think, he's not here. And you go to sleep thinking, he's not here. Little things can send any one of you into a tailspin. Hearing a song on the radio, hearing his ringtone on someone else's phone, going to his favorite restaurant, playing a board game that he made way more fun than it really was, or just telling stories and remembering him. The destruction is far-reaching and forever. Hazing is unfortunately powerful and vicious. Before you haze, put yourself in this place and remember how much it hurts to have someone damaged or gone from your life. Don't be the person who does this to someone and destroys their family and friends, as well as that of your own future and that of your parents. And in the back of your mind, consider that one day you might have kids. Would you want someone to do this to your child, your baby? Consider the consequences. Don't think it won't happen because it does. It did. And it will hurt so many people with the greatest pain imaginable. You are very loved. You may not hear it very often, but know that you are very loved. Your absence from people's lives would be devastating to them. Now remember, the person next to you is just as loved by their family and friends, who would be crippled by their loss. Please listen to us and don't haze.
So what can you do? You guys are the leaders of your organizations, right? And guess what? And I don't say this to scare you, but guess who prosecutors are looking at first when they go to try a criminal case? What did the leader do? What did the president of the organization do? Who am I as a parent going to be looking to? I'm going to look to, what did the leader do? So you guys chose to be in this position, which is a great thing, because it's going to be great as you develop into your life and your career. You're going to have skills that you develop. But sometimes being a leader is tough. It takes courage, and sometimes it's even lonely because you have to make tough decisions. So I'm asking you guys to be the leader that you signed up to be. Follow your values. Talk to the folks in your organizations, at your schools, amongst your IFC. Lead them. Pass the message along. If you see somebody doing something that isn't right, step up and say something about it. If there's somebody in your organization that says, you know what, this is how we do it, man. I got hazed, this is what we do. You tell them no, or you get rid of them. In Max Groover's case, the individual that's brought up on homicide charges right now had a history of doing things, and the leadership went to him and they said, all right, we're going to give you one more chance to clean up your act and stop this. Max Groover was his one more chance. They should have gotten rid of the guy. So as leaders, you may have to make some tough decisions. If it doesn't look right, doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Just because it happened to you doesn't mean you should carry it on. You're smart guys. You wouldn't have been elected president if you weren't. So we're just asking you to make the right decisions. And if you see something, report it, whether it's at your school's reporting app that they have, or anonymous hotline, or whatever it is.
Or the fraternity hotline.
The fraternity hotline, just report it. And if someone is in immediate danger, make the phone call. You'll be in a much better position if you make the phone call than if you don't. Again, in our case, the president of the fraternity saw my son laying there on a couch, dying, and was like, no, you know, we can't call. And when 12 hours later, they did call, and the ambulance picked up a stiff body, he told them to go clean up the basement. He told the pledges to go clean up the basement. Don't backpack. You heard why. You know, as I said, you had, well, not you, but someone died on this campus from drinking too much alcohol, and he was backpacked instead of someone calling help for him. And his family is working very seriously towards putting out a video about why backpacking doesn't work right now. Promote safe recruitment, safe pledging. There are a lot of things you can do to build brotherhood. It doesn't have to have alcohol. It doesn't have to have physical abuse. Do you want to talk about the one thing that you heard at one of the fraternities, what the brothers did?
So we went to the Kirby Leadership Conference, Ray and Groover and I, and one of the young men stood up and said, well, at my fraternity, we had to sleep over at the fraternity house, and they woke us up at like 5 in the morning, and they made us line up in single file and march down the stairs, and I was thinking, oh man, what did I get myself into? And then they had to make a right-hand turn, and they walked into the kitchen, and the brothers were up since 4 in the morning making them breakfast. So they all sat down and they had this feast, and he said that it was just an incredible experience, just sitting there and talking and bonding. And one by one, we were hearing other stories of bonding experiences and true brotherhood that didn't include demeaning and hurting somebody. And that I think is more valuable. That's something that's gonna make you close, and you're gonna remember things about that person.
So I'm just gonna reiterate, be the leader that you signed up to be, and do the right things, and pass the message along to the rest of your teams.
So we challenge you. What can you do to change the culture? How can you encourage true brotherhood in your organization? What can you do instead of hazing? How can you be leaders and make your chapter an example to all other organizations on campus? And again, I go back to, it's everyone's responsibility. So even if your group isn't hazing, but you know another one is, you got to call them out on it. Either you got to call them out or you got to go to the IFC, because they will bring you all down. You have to stop this culture. So we ask you to care enough to educate yourself and your members on what is right and wrong. Care enough to make sure those around you are making safe decisions. Care enough to remove others from harm's way. Care enough about others that you don't have to demean them. Care enough to report when someone else is not caring. Care enough to live the values you committed to in your organization. So I want to end tonight with something that Max Groover's parents found in a journal the night before his funeral. And it was something that he wrote on blessings when he was 16 years old. And the last paragraph ended with this: God works in funny ways. He does bad things sometimes because in the end they are good. Something bad can happen to you, but it may happen because it will make you better. He does bad to ultimately create good. All of our boys were no different from you. They went away to college and they wanted to find a home away from home. They wanted a brother when they couldn't be with their own. They wanted family when they couldn't be with theirs. They wanted to feel safe. Please take these words back with you to your organizations and across your campus and put an end to hazing. Hazing has no place on your campus. Make something good come out of something so horribly bad. Make change happen. Thank you for your time today, and we wish you much success in the world. You have so much to look forward to. Stay true to yourself and to your values, and please keep each other safe.
Thank you, guys.